Yo, what is good? What is good? We are live. Welcome in. Welcome in. Oh, dude, I am so excited to be streaming. I gotta. I've been going through and checking on the daily games, and so we're gonna go through and play some dailies, and then I think we're gonna do some reacts. And then I think, honestly, after that we'll probably just game for a bit. I've been grinding Valo. I'm thinking some Marvel Rivals though. I gotta start learning some of the characters a little more so when I hop in with the boys, we can I actually know what I'm doing. So how's everyone doing? How are we doing today, you guys? Not there. No, no, no. Let's see. Yeah, so there's a couple new Jubilee videos I wanted to do. We're gonna start with this one, and then I also got some other ones, in the queue. Maybe we'll skip through them pretty fast. I don't know. We'll see. We'll play by ear. 55 minutes is crazy. Alright, maybe just a Jubilee video. That's nobody. Dude, could you imagine if somebody like walked forward to that? Less than 10K? Maybe if you're working like a part-time job. I feel like most if you're a living adult, I think minimum you gotta be making like at least 20K. No? I hope no. No way. At least it's not 1K, right? At least this guy didn't walk forward at like 1K. Oh my god. Okay. No way. Yo, the bow is crazy. $9 million? Wild. Dude, I wish I could make like even a fraction of that. One day we'll get there. You know, I'm actually kind of surprised that a couple of rich people walked forward. I feel like I don't know. I just didn't expect that. Usually people are like wanting to keep more of their money. Upper middle class? Wait. How much was he No. So, okay, he probably made like half a mil last year. And he's considering himself upper middle class? Wild. What is like the money bracket for middle class? Like, where does upper middle class stop and where does upper class begin? Cause like I don't know. I don't consider myself poor, but I ain't making half a mil. Well, you had some weird points. What would that be? What's like an unrealized gain? Is that like somebody who's putting money in and then just like forgetting about it? Is that what it is? Like long-term investing that you kind of just got stashed away? Nah. I'm happy that one of the poor people stood back, and it's not just all of the poor people stepping forward being like rich people need to, because like I do agree. I think the rich should be taxed more, but more along the lines that the last guy said, because like that we're not the rich aren't paying like the same percentage even that like a lower class teacher would be making. That's fair. Not knowing where your money's going, I guess is a good reason. But why not pay the minimum base that everybody else has to pay? If the country had like a minimum percentage that needs to get taxed, and then use the rest of your money after that minimum to pay for things that you believe in, you believe on backing. And that's a fair reason too. I mean, not knowing where your taxes are really going, but then that gets a little more political into like who your political leaders are, you know, in state and in Congress. No way. Have I had no audio for this the whole time? Crazy.
Conception a lot of people have is like the rich don't pay
Crazy.
taxes at all.
Sorry, chat.
If you look at corporate like payroll tax, like that's like the taxes that we pay. by far
This is
in
awkward.
America, corporations pay the most taxes in payroll.
Most payroll taxes like Social Securities and Medicare are evenly split between employers and employees, while employers alone pay a federal unemployment tax.
That is
Dope.
like for example, but it is coming from other people's checks, but we factor that into their salary, right? We know that we're gonna have to pay taxes on that. That's one thing to think about. I do think that the system is set up for the rich to just make way more money, especially with the unrealized gains, like leveraging that.
We like to say, like, we want everyone to pay the same percent, same stuff like that. But it's not like rich people, massive business owners use less government services. They are using these roads way more. They are using all these things so much more than the average person who just needs to drive to work. If you need a million trucks going places, like, it wouldn't be unfair for these people to pay more because they use more, because they're bigger entities.
I think sometimes people are mad and they're angry about wealth inequality.
But isn't there a don't businesses also pay taxes? So wouldn't that get covered some other way through like vehicle and road costs?
Equality, and they think that like taxing people will solve wealth inequality, and like I think it might solve it on like a numbers basis, but I just don't know that that's the right thing.
Okay, so the money that the government doesn't receive by taxing billionaires and multinational corporations, they have to come up with the money still. So what do? They borrow it. They borrow it from corporations when they could have just taxed them. And when you borrow from billionaires and these large corporations, you then have to pay them interest. The government has to pay all this interest on the money that they should have just taxed them in the first place. So that's why you have 30 trillion. I mean, the national debt is a scam in and of itself. The fact that people bring that up as a talking point is ludicrous.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks.
Crazy. Men should be the breadwinners of the family. Wild.
I grew up in a pretty traditional Muslim household, and it's like very common
For religious
men to
reasons,
kind of
I get
be the
that.
breadwinner, and like that's the tradition I grew up. So I have very strong beliefs in that. I do think that there are abstractions, like there are times where women are the breadwinners and vice versa, but I don't think that it should, like for me, like the way that I've grown up, the way that my family's grown up for many years, many generations, it's been a tradition that like the man is very responsible for taking care of his family and the financials of kind of this unit. And I don't plan on changing that, so it's something I just believe in. But that doesn't mean there's room for abstractions. People can switch it up, but yeah, that's what I believe.
Can the disagreeers please step forward?
Yeah, but who's gonna disagree with him? It's a religious. I mean, he even said like, yes, it's not a thing everywhere, but I believe it because of my religion. You can't really like turn that.
The reason why I disagreed is because I think you should just do whatever works for your relationship. In my relationship personally, yes, I'm the one who does the providing and the protecting, and that works great for us. But that doesn't mean it works well for everybody else. And I mean, if you're dating a boss lady who works in tech and she makes like 500 grand a year, like you don't need to stretch yourself out if you're like, you work in a factory making 36K.
I agree with you 100%. I think you should do whatever works best for y'all relationship. But I notice now in modern dating, a lot of women have this expectation on, oh, the man should be doing this, and that. And I don't necessarily like that because these expectations put you in a weird position, especially if you feel like you're not really receiving much in return.
In my current relationship, I was so upfront with my partner. I said, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm not going to be able to be the sole provider.
Yeah, teachers only make like what, 50K.
I want to be a high school teacher, maybe a college teacher. That's my passion. That's what I want to do.
Right now he's making less than. Right now he's a student.
I love that about you. That's one of my favorite things about you, and we're gonna make that work. I'm gonna work. She's gonna work, and we gotta get through it somehow. It's really hard.
Yeah, it really is different per relationship. I mean, it's really however you and your partner wanna do, financial things, how to split it up.
With having just one provider, I mean, I think everyone on this side of the room probably can if you're the rich man, but a lot of us, we need two incomes. It's just not possible for the man to be the sole provider, breadwinner.
The reason that I put the expectation on myself is because like I also expect other expectations of my wife, right? Like, I'm not gonna marry a woman that's not gonna be able to take care of my children, right? Like, I think that's one expectation that I have. And once again, this is not an arbitrary thing where it's like, it has to be this way or that way. It's just what I believe.
I think we all have our expectations in
I
relationships.
mean,
and we
everybody
can
wants
communicate those
different
with a partner
things
and
in their
super upfront with that,
relationship.
there's no problem.
I only disagree with the characterization of the premise that men should be the breadwinner, as if we should be conforming to traditional gender roles in this society.
I think there's a term that I learned maybe last year is financial compatibility, and I think that's one thing that is really important in a relationship, because if you're making a lot of money and your partner isn't really, and because I personally think that a relationship, both people should work, both people should be just contributing. But if someone's making a lot more than the other one, then it will always feel just incompatible, because it'll always cause the other person to feel, oh, like I'm paying more, I'm contributing more, I'm working more.
I was gonna say, I think there's a bit of nuance there. I'm in a polyamorous relationship where I make significantly more than my partners. One of them is an RBT, so they work, minimum wage, working for schools, working grueling hours with kids with disabilities, and so it's a very hard life for them. And we've been together for over 3 years now. And there's never been a sense of me putting myself and my income above them, or using that as hey, I'm going to lead the household and I'm going to make the decisions on my own because I'm the primary one bringing in the significant, revenue into the household. It definitely comes down to the relationship itself, because they knew me when I was working for minimum wage jobs. And so because of that, just because I'm in a place now, tomorrow I could have nothing. I know that the love would still be there and a relationship would still be strong. So while there can be definitely situations where an income, inequality would impact a relationship, I think it speaks more so to the depth and the strength of the relationship itself, rather than the inequality being the main driver for any sort of issues in that relationship.
Have you never felt that it's just kind of unfair that you're putting so much in, and the other, I'm just generally asking.
No, not at all. Because I've been in relationships where I was the one who was working at Chick-fil-A making $9.25 an hour, and I was my girlfriend had a $60,000 job in DC, and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much for taking me out to dinner or something. And so that mentality of that reciprocity of if I'm going to be there for you emotionally, you're helping me with my finances, we're in this together as a partnership. That's
how it should be.
Those relationships through, and I've never again, I know that everything.
I don't care. I don't care who's making the money, as long as if one of us is broke, the other person helps them out, and and then the love in the relationship is still there, no matter how much either of you are making. I mean, you should be fair with your partner. You shouldn't. If I believe even if somebody's making more, you should still be trying to not just put it all on one person. You guys share everything.
So there's no feeling of, well, I'm doing all this, why are you not putting in as much effort? They're working super hard. And so just because they didn't have the same connections or opportunities that I had means nothing to the fact that they're worth less or something to me.
To piggyback off that too, for me in my relationships, I've always made more, and it didn't really tend to bother me. I think people are driven by passion, and not all careers pay the same. But if the person I'm with is really passionate about what they're doing, I admire that.
That speaks a lot to me, because ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be so rich and successful to where my wife didn't have to work.
I mean, I feel like all kids
my
though,
kids
no?
could do whatever the hell they wanted to do.
No?
And so I kind
Just
of
me?
did that with my ex when I was thriving. We didn't have kids. I got an episode for that, if you believe. You know what I mean, right? But not. We didn't have kids, but it was just the fact that my ex didn't have to work, and I helped put her in that position. So that made me feel good. I think a lot of people in relationships, there's an ego thing with it. So if the man ain't making enough money, he feels less than a man, and then he treats his girl a different way, and then that creates problems. Or his girl don't respect him or treats him a different way, and then that creates problems. I think as long as you're doing what works for your relationship, like old boy said right here, right? I think that's what matters most.
It's a cultural issue.
It's also an antiquated approach, right? What is the term, trad wife or something?
Traditional.
Yeah,
Well, traditional.
Yeah.
Which I don't even care for. I don't,
Yeah.
in all I've been 5 different
I don't
committed
cook,
relationships.
I don't clean.
My whole thing is, I don't expect my girl to cook for me. I don't expect her to clean for me. I don't expect you to do nothing for me except be yourself. And as long as we good.
Hey, I can cook and clean.
No, I think what you're
Taken,
touching on
though.
is that, and what you've touched on as well, is there's all these different ways that relationships can work. And I think they can work in every way. I want a different relationship than what you want, but both can absolutely work, and there are pitfalls for both too, and you just have to avoid those pitfalls, of course, yeah.
You know, I'm married, I have 2 kids, and I would say have more of a traditional relationship, and I love it, and it's wonderful, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I know that what works for me doesn't necessarily work for everybody in this room.
I don't know about you guys too, but like, so in relationships I've been in, I have made more than my partner, but if they did make more than me, I would be stoked.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds
I would love
incredible.
to say that too.
Right, like who would get mad about that?
I will
That
put
is
on the
insane.
maid dress and I will mop the floor.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
I'll be the coolest house husband ever.
Yeah, it is an ego thing.
Walking home with a little glass of wine, I'll be sitting there like, can I get you anything, honey? Like, would you like me to take your shoes off, give you a little massage, whatever you need?
I kind of love spoiling
crazy.
my wife and my kids. I mean, partly because
I do that, though.
I mean, my
I
mom was
would.
making
I
$10
would.
an hour raising 3
I'd
kids.
be a house
Back then,
husband.
Now I'm in a position where I can, you know, spoil the people that I'm with. I kind of love doing that.
I know I'm not going to be able to spoil her with like a million diamond rings and stuff like that, but I can spoil her in other ways. I can make dinner for us. I can plan things for us.
There's balance, so someone could be supporting financially, but someone else is supporting emotionally. And I think as long as you're aware of that balance, that could be like a secret to a healthy relationship. But if that balance kind of fades out in the dark, then that's when, you know.
Yeah, in my tradition, we have a very strong belief that like marriage is like a fortress. It's like, as you're one pillar of it, your wife is another. And in America, we have this conception of like love marriages. You marry people you love. In Islam, we have a much more like deeper sense of that, in the sense of like it's not just love. It's family ties. Like your family and their family are now one unit.
Families are getting married.
And so you have like multiple pillars, and then you have like, if you're religious, right, you have like this ethical and moral compass that aligns with the other, and that's a.
I do think that's a cool thing that that some religions do. It's more, a marriage is more of less of like a contract between 2 people, and honestly more of like a 2 families combining to be
compass, and
one.
then, like, can you benefit each other in knowledge as well? So there's many other pillars. So if one breaks, there's another to stand on.
Becoming rich is easier now than it ever has been.
I grew up pretty much at the poverty line, so the opportunities that my mom had were so limited to compared to what the opportunities that I have today. And, you know, I was able to, I mean, frankly, make millions and millions of dollars in my 20s because of all
He was the super rich guy, yeah?
You know, in America, and especially
less
in
than
modern
9 mil?
times, where if you just
I think so.
zoom out, a lot of those opportunities weren't available. You know, even just like 50 years ago.
It's true though. I feel like there's especially with social media, there's so many more opportunities now to make more money. Not only that, but like also with just the natural increase. What's it called? Oh my god. The dollar's worth a lot more now. Currency. Inflation. That's the word. Fucking inflation. I mean, the line to be rich is much higher than it used to be. The amount of millionaires we have today versus the amount of millionaires we had like 15 years ago is a tremendous difference, because now $1 million does not mean as much as it used to be. That's why we also now, like I remember growing up, I remember hearing the first person like, oh, this person's a billionaire. And that was like a big thing. And now there's like probably in the multiple, like double digits, maybe even triples. How many billionaires are there in the world? Wait. Okay, or not.
It would be different.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, I think not only is there opportunity, but the internet has just enabled us to learn anything we want.
I think the fact that you can just be making money off of your laptop just anywhere in the world is revolutionary.
I think there's been a bit of
The
explosion
U.S.
in
alone, there's 759 billionaires.
I feel like that's been a big thing.
I think
in
that
recent
that
times,
alone,
making money off
like,
the backs of others has become
crazy.
easier than it ever has been. I think like you can just start a podcast.
There's also like
and
more
just,
people. Like numbers
the
just
whole time, and
increasingly
you'll just, like, blow
get bigger
up
and
and go
bigger.
crazy. I think like
It's gonna be easier
late
in
stage
10 years to
capitalism,
make $1 million than it is now.
like there are so many
Guaranteed.
exploits and things you can do, and that's not, I'm not saying you guys have done that specifically, I don't know your stories, but like you can be a landlord and just start charging exorbitant amounts of rent. That's why it's so unaffordable to live, especially here in California. Like there are so many evil ways that people can make money that I think it's easier now than it ever has been if you have sort of sketchy morals.
Is a landlord always an evil way to make money to you?
Honestly, not always, but I would love to see society move away from this from housing being a form of investment.
So I am a real estate developer.
That's never gonna happen.
And I just bought a piece of land to build a house. The piece of land just for the dirt, $735,000. Just the permitting, just like literally the fee that I had to pay to get the right to build on that property that I own, 110 grand. It's challenging to offer affordable housing when you're already $800,000 deep and you haven't even put shovel to dirt.
I don't put as much blame on the individual as I do on the systems. I really wish.
I would love to back you up on that. So I actually have a pretty strong thesis on this. So like I bought property and stuff before, and I've realized like
I understand where the kid's coming from, but like that realistically that'll never be a thing. Humans are too greedy. And like I don't know, just inflation is another thing. Like those numbers are just going to increase because the cost of, getting these permits are a lot more and the cost for the materials are more. I mean, unless you take out inflation and if the currency were set,
like from this once again I tie this back
but
to
it just
like,
wouldn't
it's
happen.
like, you're not allowed to mess with interest. And the reason for that is because it favors the rich in a way where it pulls away from economic gain from society. And it's like, hey, because I have $100,000, I can pull $1 million of leverage. Well, if you only have 10,000, you can only pull 100,000. And now what's happening today is like these companies like BlackRock and these big institutional holdings, because they already have trillions of dollars, can leverage trillions of more to buy more houses, rising the prices, rising the interest rates for everyone, and you guys suffer the most.
And it incentivizes the most fucked up practices.
Yes.
Like the more you can charge, the higher interest rates you can have, the more you can do, the more you can exploit, the more you can steal,
the more money you have,
the more you get.
The more money you'll make, and eventually you become the bank. That's what rich people have become, and I really hope that I never kind of go down that path. So it's something that, even as us, like I think when you make money, like you'll see a lot of your friends kind of like you can make a lot more money if you make money. And like you have to really control yourself. That's why I also believe
once you have money, it's easier to make money if you're actually putting in the work and your goal is to make more money. Like I feel like the difference between the upper class and the lower class is a majority of the lower class wants to make money but isn't willing to go out of their way and do the extra steps that it takes to like do investing or learn how to do this or this. Like some people just don't do that.
Money is actually a curse in a way too. Like there are pros, yes, you can have a lot of nice things, but you also have a lot more options to do bad things, and they might not be clearly bad things, like taking a loan on something bigger, or like they're not inherently bad, but it's like they can hurt someone on the back end, and I just don't believe in that.
I don't necessarily see interest as evil. I mean, there's a cost to debt, right? There's like a time value on money, as we learned. But I do think, to your point, I think that's where a government's duty is to step in and kind of put those guardrails.
Yeah. Like it's hard not to sometimes, but I do my best not to ever put the blame on the individual, because any individual is not going to be able to change that system that encourages this stuff.
When people learn like to utilize credit in America, I don't know if they even have credit in other countries or if it's similar to America.
They do, but America is by far the biggest credit lender in the world.
So that, right? Back in 2019, like nobody
credit
ever
is crazy.
How to go about building credit properly, right? But in 2019, I had friends that was doing drop shipping automation, like Amazon automation, right? So I had a friend, they was all running stores. So she was charging $8,000 to get into this thing, but I didn't have $8,000 at the time. So I started researching credit. I asked questions from all my little rich friends on Facebook. I went on YouTube. So I did research. I went a different route. I got 3 unsecured credit cards for $1,500. I learned about authorized users. But then I think it was within 3 or 6 months, I was able to get $32,000. And then like a year and a half later, I got over 100 grand. That was from having 0 credit. So the thing is, if people actually research credit and learn how to build it properly, it's easy to get money. And the cool thing about credit is, if you invest and you fuck up, you could just let it go to collections and dispute it all up anyway.
Yeah, but you shouldn't think like that.
No, hold on. Let me finish.
There's someone that suffers at the end of that system. So.
I understand. Yeah. What I'm saying is though, right? Go about it the right way. Be responsible. Pay your credit, because don't fuck up intentionally. But what I'm saying is, it's easy to get the money to invest if you know what you're doing. Yeah. But the thing is, if you don't...
It's so... Sorry, just to cut you. It's so easy to get the money that people will dig themselves in the hole because they see money.
Right? I agree with you.
Yeah. People just get greedy. I mean, greedy and not thinking about it. Like you could get a $10,000 credit card, and some people are just like, we'll spend it left and right. And sometimes that's hard to, not, but You gotta be responsible. Be a responsible person. Pay off your credit cards.
Good debt and bad debt.
Of course.
So I was using my debt for investments. I wasn't just buying
Sorry,
like
credit cards though?
I was using the credit cards and then
See,
loans.
dude, that's
rough,
like
dude.
I agree with
20%
you.
interest.
I agree. But
What are you investing in that makes sense?
Well, that's the thing. So I was okay. So like for example, I done like Amazon drop shipping, right? I was making money on cashback. So the thing was, I was making money and I was paying my bill every single month. So I wasn't just buying like Beats by Dre.
But where did it go wrong? Because I
So-
mean, with respect,
Oh yeah,
you're on the
I'ma
other
tell you,
side now.
I wasn't like up with my debt. I was paying my bill every single month. I've been day trading since 2014. I wasn't like broke. Even like last year, I had my biggest trading.
Trading
I made
since
$161
2014 and
in
still
3
sitting there.
hours. But the thing was, I was
He's
making
doing
money
something
at
wrong.
passive income, and I trusted some of my rich friends, right, into a bad investment that they ended up rug pulling everybody. And I currently have a lawsuit trying to get my money back. So that's why I ended up over here. I always wanted to be on that rich side for this episode. You know what I mean, right?
I feel like your story kind of epitomizes like my worldview on this question, is that it's easier to make money now because there's so many ways of passive income. And that's kind of what I don't like about it, is passive income doesn't really benefit society. You're making money off the work of others instead of off your own work. So you're not really helping anyone except yourself.
We're talking about a societal trend, and you can't disprove that thesis or that premise by citing your own personal story.
What happened? What? Oh, the disagreeers becoming rich is easier now than it ever has been, and these people
Talking
are the
about a
disagreeers.
societal trend, and you can't disprove that thesis or that premise by citing your own personal story. You have to look
The
at
guy on the end doesn't talk
data,
very much.
and,
He
when
probably
you say
wasn't
it's easier to
saying
get
good
rich
shit.
now than it ever has been.
Because I feel like they just keep
Who's
skipping
getting
over
rich?
him.
And
I mean, unless he just
if
sat
you look at
down.
the data, it's the top
Maybe I'm missing it.
1% of the population. And I just thought of some statistics which would help my point, which is to say that, you know, the largest increase in the poverty rate from one year to the next happened in 2021 to 2022. And the poverty
Rate rose from 7.8% in 2021 to 12.4% in 2022. The largest single year increase on record according to Census Bureau data. However, the rate is still low compared to the data dating back to the 1967 poverty rates were historically low in 2020 and 2021 due to the pandemic. I mean, yeah, but that was the pandemic. But that's good to know. Poverty rose from, it doubled from 2021 to 2022. I feel like COVID-19 was coming to a close these. No? I feel like most people should have been losing their jobs in like 2019, 2020, not 2021, 2022.
rate from one year to the next happened in 2021 to 2022. The majority of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. It's a very precarious life for most of us. And we live in a world where 3 Americans own more wealth than 150 million other Americans, the bottom half of the American population. Another statistic is 8 people in the entire world own all of the wealth, own more wealth and power than 90% of the bottom half of the population. I'm sorry, 50% of the bottom half of the population. That's from Oxfam, and that is 4 billion people. So 8, and this is in 2017, mind you. This is 8 people in the world own more wealth than 4 billion people. And, you know, I just think we live in a predatory political economy. And, yeah, sure.
So I got a 2-part question for you, right?
Sure.
First part, do you believe in anybody in this half moon shaped circle is better than you?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so if we have personal experiences that we made different kinds of money, do you feel like that could potentially happen for you as well if you apply yourself properly?
I think that it's not about an individual answer to a systemic question. We're talking about institutions, okay? I'm sorry, you know,
I don't know what this guy's doing.
You know, you're talking about the housing industry, the real estate, you know, how expensive it is. And, well, the reason for that is because the housing industry has been monopolized. by pretty much one corporation, Blackstone, which bought up all the houses.
So he's saying that it's still very hard to become rich. Blackstone, an investment firm, owns an estimated 0.06% of single-family housing units in the United States, according to the Peril Labs. Blackstone has the third largest single-family home portfolio in the U.S. The third largest. And they own 0.06. Who are the top two? How many people live in the U.S., though? 340 million? That's like... That's what, like half a mil? Or less? They own 500,000 single family housing units. I don't consider that a monopoly. I mean, maybe technically it is, but I feel like that's not terrible.
Raised all the rents. And so
I do think that does suck, probably for the main cities where they are probably, you know, I imagine it's probably like some of the bigger cities like LA or Seattle or New York. You never really know. But I feel like a majority of the housing that people, you know, you can buy housing pretty easily. If you go through the right channels and do it properly, I feel like real estate is a really good route and investment. If that's what you're trying to do.
with that now. And so, yeah,
There's plenty of
no affordable housing. The homelessness
realtor.
has never been higher. You know?
I want to say I agree with your worldview like completely. The reason I stepped forward for this question is those systems you laid out make it easier for individuals to rise. We cannot all. It's not easier for
Very
everyone
rich
to make it.
individuals that
Yes.
have already benefited from generational wealth, from every advantage.
I think knowledge is wealth. I think if you know what you're doing, and I feel like generationally the money does get passed down, yes, but I think more importantly the knowledge of how to make money.
I think there are a lot of like scammy ways that poor
Absolutely,
people
and I'm
can
not
also
saying,
get out there,
if you
though.
got into
there
Bitcoin,
are a lot of like honest ways.
If
but
you had gotten into Bitcoin in 2014, yeah, there's a lot of teenagers that are becoming millionaires, but that's such a small sliver, and it doesn't disprove. That doesn't disprove the entire thesis of this.
When I hear that question, right, the hardest thing I have for me is I understand not everybody can get rich, but I truly do believe in America, everybody has the opportunity to be rich. Now, you may have come from a different background where it's harder to come up, you know what I mean?
Well, of the two people in question, you have had a harder time, no doubt.
Wait, because of my past, though. Why not, right?
And it's because of your race. It's because of the color of your skin. That is because racism is a systemic problem in America.
I don't see my skin color as a problem because at the end of the day, though, I'd still educate
what's
myself
good? Welcome in.
before I got
How we doing today?
You know what I mean? So as a black person who's at a disadvantage, and let's just say that it really
What'd
is
I
a
miss?
disadvantage. That never held me back from doing all the shit
I'm
that I
not
wanted
saying
to
that
do.
you don't have your own personal, optimism for, bootstrapping yourself. I'm saying you're facing institutions that are designed to undermine your livelihood, and that is because of the color of your skin.
I would have to
And I
disagree about
acknowledge-
today. I would say
Whoa.
Historically in America, certainly. I would say in 2024, 2025, whenever this is coming out. I mean, again, we're all here. We're talking.
Yeah.
I've been able to make $2 million a year since I was like 28.
Mm-hmm.
There's really nothing special about me. I can spot opportunity, and I think that if what you're saying is true, and I was subject to all, like I've never felt that the
I
color
can
of my
find
skin
you
is a
millions of
barrier.
other people that do
Well,
not
I'm sure.
share that.
Yeah, I'm
personal
sure, but-
anecdote, you know
but
what
what
I'm saying? And that's the point of the thesis.
but what
That's
I-
the point of the premise.
It's all about belief at the end of the day. Go
And
ahead.
also,
Romeo.
I don't think
remember
so. I
the
think it's the
prompt
material
was it's
conditions.
easier today to get rich than it ever has been. There was a point where someone who looked like me wasn't even allowed to buy a house. That's not true today. So for me, getting out of that circumstance is building wealth. Same thing, even women weren't allowed to have a bank account in their own name till like the 70s in some states. That now they can, right? And I think it's easier today.
I guess for him, what is your kind of dream state then? Like if it's not today, what?
That's crazy. Is that true? 70s? That is wild.
Period in history is
I
the
believe
easiest.
that we live in a class-based society. There are workers and there are owners, and we are defined by what we do for a living. And if you work for a living, you're in the working class. And if you accrue capital and passive income, like you all were saying, by the hard work of others, then you are a capitalist. If you own the means of production by which workers work those means of production, you are exploiting them. And that's the only way that billionaires are allowed to propagate their wealth.
Let me ask you this. Would you consider anyone with a 401k exploiting people?
No.
Because they hold stocks that are ownership of a business.
Yeah, that's also an instrument of class war.
The 401k is an instrument of class war.
Yeah, that's the idea that I mean, look at what BlackRock does. I mean, they're gutting workers' pensions. They're gutting your retirement funds. It's not the people that have a 401k. It's the people that are doling out these 401k plans. They are the ones that are taking away from the workers.
So the reason why I disagreed with the prompt was primarily based on something outside of finances, which was time. And so a lot of things that I heard was, oh, everyone has access to a laptop, everyone has access to a phone. It's easier than ever with online sources like drop shipping or crypto or things to get rich in today's society. But with the shrinking middle class, more and more people working paycheck to paycheck, not as many people have the time in the day to utilize those resources or even learn how to use them. For example, like I grew up with a military background. Like my parents were both military. I grew up working for like Chick-fil-A and as a paintball referee. So I was working a lot of minimum wage jobs, but my parents, who were upper middle class, gave me the opportunity to learn how to use a computer in my downtime or take a couple months off from working to be able to learn how to do social media, which is what I do now. And now I have the opportunity to make millions, and so it'd be easier for me to sit here and say, wow, it's easier than ever to make money in today's society. But if you even look outside of America as a country and at the global economy as a whole, there are so many millions and millions and millions of people who are sitting here going, what do you mean it's easier than ever to make money? I'm watching the upper 1% get richer and richer, and I'm still here struggling to pay rent and make food every day. And so that's why I was like, I don't think it's easier. Like, sure, there are opportunities and a lot of more people have the opportunity, but overall, there's a lot of inequality there that makes it more difficult than ever.
The largest transfer of wealth ever in human history has occurred in the past 40 years. $50 trillion has been basically robbed from the working class, the bottom 90% of Americans, to the top 1%. And that's another example of the disparity, the inequality, economic inequality.
Whose fault do you think that is?
It's the
Whose fault? Ooh. I don't think it's the upper class. I do think it's probably the lower class. I would put it to politics.
the fault of the people that are in charge. Obviously, the people that control the economy and subsequently control the government. It's the capitalists. It's the 1%. That is their function in society, to be parasites upon the majority of the population.
There's one thing I have to just disagree on.
Sure.
As far as wealth inequality goes, there's no question. Today, it's more exacerbated than at any other time.
Yes.